Spider-Man 2 is good. You don't need me to tell you that. Every other game reviewer on the platform has that covered, and I'm not at the point in my channel where I need to make overview videos like that. It's a good game that I haven't had the urge to play more of ever since completing the main story. Maybe I'll finish that Wraith side quest later. Maybe what's more interesting is the clever way this game managed to weave its gameplay with the narrative. When you begin, you have most, if not many, of the abilities you unlock by the end of the first game, and boy, does it feel good to be back. Of course, you realize you're outclassed. Suddenly, methods like my personal favorite, that I lovingly titled Total Violence, the least Spider-Man-like way of playing, are no longer optimal. On one hand, it made me sad. I enjoyed the simplicity to the fights in Spider-Man. They never asked too much of me, which allowed for a bit more freedom in my fighting style. The devs over at Insomniac had a different idea. Parry this and such. So then, when I was outclassed, outmatched by the hunters and then even more by the cultists, and eventually by prickly new symbiote enemies, I decided to upgrade my skill tree, doing away with skill points and some odd suit tech and gadget points. Mind you, my original idea was to bank all of my points till I got the symbiote suit, only spending on absolute necessities till then. But I needed a buff, and buffs I found. The spider arms are awesome, albeit a little limiting. They did the job. The real thing of value was damage and focus upgrades and their own skill trees, and then I got my symbiote suit. I was having a blast. Evil Peter, Yuri Lowenthal using his Sasuke voice.
That felt good.
And attack buffs. The narrative tension was here, and I could actually feel it in the way I was playing. I felt like I had to hold back for a little bit in terms of things like using the surge and specific abilities. Maybe it was all too brutal for the small potatoes enemies. And it was. Danica Hart even says so on the Danicast, recounting civilian reports of the threatening aura of the symbiote suit. This was the case until I died one too many times. Then I let loose completely. I was thriving. I really did feel like Spider-Man, and I was unstoppable. But not quite. Along the way, the difficulty starts to increase even more. Subtly at first, but once you make it all the way to the little symbiote goons, there's a clear power imbalance. Spider-Man is once again outmatched, and although it feels a little unfair at times, it feels right. Spider-Man has always had the odds stacked against him, but he's smart enough to think his way through enemies. This goes for both Peter and Miles. Miles has always felt a little easier to play, coming with the Venom powers baked into his toolkit since his standalone game, but by the peak of the Hunter's plotline, I was feeling the heat. That's a narrative choice too. It's at this point that the Hunters pull one over on Miles and he's trapped, and Peter's losing it because the symbiote is taking over. And so the difficulty peaks right around here, kind of the sweet spot between fighting the Hunters and right before fully tackling your symbiote buddies. So, here, the game makes a decision that I loved, then resented, then grew to love even more. That's why I wrote this video. I don't think I was even going to make a Spider-Man video in the first place, but you play as Venom. No barriers, no holding back. You play as Venom and it's awesome. This is the first part of the game that I really felt the need to capture footage from. In initial runs, I don't generally record unless something really notable is going on, and here it is! Venom feels amazing to play. Suddenly you realize that that sense of difficulty that's there when you're playing as Peter and Miles is made to represent the restraint that they use while being Spider-Man. That's why it's hard, because being Spider-Man is hard. Yeah, whatever, these games are power fantasies, but there's a level of craftsmanship that goes into deciding where to limit these notoriously strong characters and making sure that playing them is emblematic of who and what they represent in these stories. So when I played as Venom, I went, why haven't I been able to do this the entire time? Why doesn't the entire game feel like this? That would be awesome. It was like this game managed to open the lid and bring back the wildest dreams I had from when I was a kid about what I wanted games to be like when I was an adult. I wanted this 40-hour-long Venom game. I destroy the entire city, we don't care about the rules, we don't give a hoot about safety, it's all about jumping over to that ledge, grabbing that guard, and dunking him into a fleet of innocents. The cooldowns are minimal. Parries and dodges are essentially the same thing, and projectile damage is a thing of the past, because Venom is awesome, and he can just absorb a missile or bullet and return to sender. Playing as Venom is the best part of the entire game, which is what makes you miss it when it's gone. The game builds up to this peak by undercutting Spider-Man's strength just a little bit at every corner. Every punch you throw, finisher you whip out, feels like it could be a little bit stronger. Even with the symbiote suit, you know you're not as powerful as you could be. Kraven even says it to you. And so suddenly, when you're just let loose to do whatever you want, it explodes. This glorious climax of all of the building blocks the game has been setting up until then. It goes without saying that a 40-hour Venom game that feels just like that would probably be kind of boring. It would get samey, there would be no sense of risk. The point of grinding like this is being able to appreciate views like this. And Spider-Man 2? What an amazing view.